I'm Will Schaible. I'm from Greenville, South Carolina. I previously attended Clemson University for my undergraduate, there for my Master's of Professional Accountancy now, equivalent to a Master's of Accountancy. Um, and I will be finishing late June, I believe, this year. Well, I think the clearest is financial opportunities, being not only connected with members, but simply being given the opportunity to kind of alleviate some of the financial pressure of undergraduate in particular is very nice. Um, See, I was introduced to SCACPA through the firm that I worked with, which was Noble Ingalls CPAs, which has David Noble and Candace Ingle, I'm sure members are aware of. And they were great. And I think that that was my primary benefit, was being introduced through them to the whole network of people and getting advice from the exams, knowing people from, say, going to a Piedmont chapter event and seeing them present at the school. It was nice to already have kind of a connection to the organization before, they're coming to speak to you. Like I said, I grew up in Greenville, South Carolina, and so I was exposed to lots of churches and the Boy Scouts in the area, and I grew up doing all of that. And kind of a consistent theme in the background is a lot of the dads who had their stuff together and were really admirable figures, except for mine, of course, were CPAs in the area. And as I got older and I was doing, for example, my Eagle Scout project, I had two separate CPAs from North Carolina and South Carolina make very generous donations and provide some good advice for my project. Chris Walker, I don't know if you're watching. But that aside, I think it was just what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What do you enjoy doing? What can you succeed at? And so I went straight into undergraduate as an accounting major, which is somewhat uncommon these days, but I don't know the statistics. But I had already kind of made up my mind because I had seen enough. Okay, well, this is what I want to be. We'll figure out can we do it later? And luckily we can do it. I think anybody can if they put their mind to it, but I was very fortunate with how things turned out and the opportunities I was presented with. But as far as where I'm going to be starting with Deloitte Tax in Charlotte, probably later July, but we haven't set an official start date yet because sometimes schedules get weird. And I hope to stay there for at least 3 to 5 years until we can pivot and see if we want to stay in public accounting or do something else. I always enjoyed partnership tax and to a lesser extent individual and estates and trust taxation. I wouldn't say that I'm a code head because I still am in grad school, so it's kind of hard to say if I am. It's hard to identify how you think about it or where your strong suits lie until you've practiced, because I've only really practiced those things a grand total of 6 months through internships, and even still that's kind of limited. But I was always fascinated by it because they are generally considered some of the more difficult areas, and I think when you have a bit of a competitive mindset where you're like, okay, well, if it's the most difficult, let me see if I can do it. And it's one of those areas that is so difficult, but it's also so relevant because, the vast majority of businesses are pass-through businesses, and there's a lot of opportunity to help people out and even learn stuff for yourself, because everybody who's a partner, obviously at a CPA firm, is a partner in an LLC or an LLP or PLLC or whatever it is. And like I said, to the lesser extent, the individual and the, the private wealth side of things, I always really found that interesting because it's like, well, you're helping the client, but you're also building some great soft skills for things that are good for you. I think just having some internship exposure is a great way to find out those things that you do like. I think anybody can positively impact the profession if they have the right attitude. I think a lot of accountants, they get bogged down with the CPA. I mean, myself included. Before I knew the results of FAR, I was, you know, dejected feeling, and the nature of the work and the material can get you feeling pretty low. And so a lot of people tend to generalize that, CPAs are boring people. And of course, if you are one, that's only partially true. But I think just approaching it and having the resolve to maintain your personality, and to be kind to others and to not forsake your morals, I think that is a really important thing to bring into the profession. And I've seen it a lot at the firms that I've worked with to varying extents. And it's something that I always admired, was somebody who is highly competent. Clients could definitely trust you, but the client also felt that they could be rest assured with you. Not, it was just simply an exchange. And so I think that that's kind of something I really think, at least, that I could do better at. Obviously, a skill I'll build as I get older and get more experience. But I think really prioritizing client interaction and, being a very professional person who they just so happen to get along with and not just interact with once a year is really important to maintaining the health of the industry. I would say don't be intimidated, because, I think this was something I was thinking a lot about when I was taking FAR, is that there seems to be a disconnect, either because of number of years of doing it or experience. Like if you took the exam writers, for example, or the people who set guidelines for, exam periods, numbers of questions, difficulty, like things like that. If you took that, I don't know that those people are super recent to when they took the exam. And so when somebody is not even taking the exam, but looking at a brochure about the exam or accounting itself, and they just see this flood of information, that's not a great selling point. And so not to recommend things to the state boards or to NASBA, but to make recommendations to the student, is to be a bit more resolute and don't be intimidated. There are thousands of people going through it as well. And it is true what they say, in the extent that you always have some form of a job. So no matter your reasons for picking it, being a bit more thick-skinned, I would say, is really important, because it'll help you grow your mentality professionally and just be a stronger contender going forward. So that would be my main recommendation. My second would be to take your undergraduate accounting courses pretty seriously. If you're in accounting, you know about compounding interest, and I thoroughly believe that, to some extent, I'm still resting on my laurels when it comes to what I learned in undergrad. Because, say you're in grad school and a professor asks you a question, like, well, I don't know the exact answer, but this is kind of this similar idea to this thing I learned back in individual tax, and it may not be the right answer, but it's pretty darn close. So I would say never waste a moment with things. Don't get too in your head on it, and really just appreciate what you're learning. You're learning stuff that you can use to help your family, your local businesses, big businesses. If you want to be an auditor, you could be securing faith in capital market. There is really an importance to what you could potentially be doing. And if you want direction, then it's a really good profession for that.